Are you looking forward to the 2024 rookie class already? Are you wondering which prospects are you going to be drafting with your draft picks in your Dynasty leagues come May? We're here to run you through a 2024 Superflex rookie mock draft and cover the key players you need to know heading into rookie season. Sit tight and stick with us while we introduce you to the key rookies you need to know for fantasy. Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Sanctuary. It is rookie season. We are here for a rookie mock draft. I'm joined by the one and only Mags. We are going to dive straight in. I am nothing but magnanimous as a host. I've allowed Mags to go first. So Mags, no pressure, but the 101 Superflex rookie mock draft, where are you going here?
Not as unanimous as some people think it is. I'll say that much, Rich, right? I think most people think it has to be unanimously Caleb Williams. That is who I have ended up going with in the end. But I really think by the end of this whole process, there'll be a real big argument into taking Marvin Harrison Jr. or even Drake Maye at the 101. But for now, in this early stage, I'm going to stick with the guy we've been talking about for a long time now. Caleb Williams, coming out of USC, was touted as a generational talent. Whisper it. I don't think he is, but I still think he's very good.
Yeah, absolutely. I apologized in our Discord today for being grumpy because I love Caleb Williams. I think he is a phenomenal prospect. I think what he can do outside of structure, in that sort of inventive style is incredible, and it's going to be fantastic for fantasy. But I'm fed up of people telling me that he is the clear-cut number one because it's just not the case. This is a very, very tight top three. And to be honest, I'm going to be delighted with any top three pick in this draft. But I think Caleb Williams is phenomenal. What he did at Oklahoma, I think perhaps is even better than what he did at USC. I think some of his tape at Oklahoma was phenomenal. Yeah. Do you worry that the hype is too much about Williams? Do you think that, as you said, you mentioned the word generational. It feels like that's almost a stick to beat people with these days rather than actually be anything potentially great. Do you think that we've almost overhyped him to the point that he's kind of overvalued and potentially going to disappoint?
Yeah, I definitely think so, especially because he didn't have a good year this year. Like he had a very good highlight reel year. He had lots of nice clips and lots of nice highlights, but he made a ton of plays where he was trying to play too much hero ball, trying to, win a game on his own. And while he didn't have, unbelievable weapons over at USC, he had some good players that he could throw the ball to ensure their defense was absolutely shocking. But yeah, I thought he tried to do a little bit too much. And I would have expected the hype to die down a little because that's kind of what happened to me after watching him this year. But I'm not seeing that really spreading too much. So yeah, I think he's been overhyped ever so slightly.
Yeah, I think he's phenomenal, but I have real concerns about him within structure at the next level. I think he struggles versus pressure, and I think that he could easily be a superstar at the next level. But let's just call the Jets because, as I said, this is a very, very tight top three. I had the 102. I went with Marvin Harrison. To be honest, if I did this again today, I think I'd probably go Drake Maye. But Marvin Harrison, I've been watching rookie prospects on film since 2009, and he's the best prospect I've graded since then. He's absolutely phenomenal. He is freakish in terms of size. I think his hands are some of the best I've seen. He is a really nuanced route runner, which you do not see at guys that are 6'4". I think he's probably going to come in about 220. He is every bit that the hype is building up to and potentially more. And a really interesting question for you here, Max. This is a question I posed to our Discord chat a couple of weeks ago. To me, Marvin Harrison, I'd say he's got a 50% chance of being a wide receiver 1 for Dynasty, 25% chance of being a wide receiver 2, let's say 15% chance of being a wide receiver 3, and a 10% chance of being a bust. I think Caleb Williams has got 25% chance of being like a top 6 QB, 50% chance of being a top 12 QB, 25% chance of being a QB2 or a bust. Which of those do you want? Do you want the guy that's got a higher chance of being a top 12 Dynasty wide receiver, or do you want the potential positional value of a quarterback?
That's a great question. What really interests me there is, and I'm not sure if it was quite explained in the percentages, is whatever percentage chance there is for either of these players to bust, it's bigger for Caleb Williams by a long shot.
Oh, 100%.
So
100%.
I think that is where I can see the argument for taking Marvin Harrison over him, because he's much safer, and it's really hard to see a world where a guy this hyped up like Marvin Harrison, and just has, he's got all the skills that his dad has in, more impressive physical like stature as well. So I really think he's about as safe as it comes at the wide receiver position. What do you say, 50% chance being a wide receiver one? I mean, how often do you say that about a rookie? I know these guys have been doing well, but yeah, I think that's spot on as well. I think it is about 50% chance. And we don't even know where he's going to go, because I don't think people really care.
No, and I think, look, I say landing spot doesn't matter for Dynasty. Maybe that's a little bit hyperbolic, but I truly believe it. And I think that, look, the high drafted wide receivers that bust are the guys that are physical freaks, that are the guys that are, combine superstars.
Yeah.
This is a guy that is a hyper talented wide receiver that is also a really good athlete. And we don't tend to see those guys bust. And I'm so excited about watching him at the next level. I think he's going to walk in as a top 6 Dynasty receiver for me as a rookie, which feels slightly wild to be saying that, but he's going to be in that tier along with, Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown, Chris Olave, without having ever stepped on the field. So yeah, I think it's a superstar, and I'm looking forward to making some draft selections for him come May time. 103 Mags, who are you going with here?
Yeah, we kind of mentioned these guys, all the top 3. It's Drake Maye. Right, Drake Maye, the second quarterback off the board. He's like the prototype, right? You've heard it before, I'm sure. If you could build a quarterback in a lab, it would kind of look like Drake Maye. It really, really does. Like size, what is he, 6'4"? Kind of a similar-ish frame to like a Justin Herbert, where you're like, he's like sneakily big. You don't realize how big he is until you really look at him go. And he's kind of like Herbert as well. He's a sneaky good athlete too. Like, not only can he get it done with his arm, but he can get it done with his legs too. I had one thing, Rich, which I think I maybe mentioned on Twitter with you. I was like, something doesn't add up here. His pass completion percentage was way lower than I thought, but I had my guy Jess Sign on the hot seat, and he was telling me, actually, he's the man behind the stats. When you look up his adjusted pass completion rate, it's absolutely fine. It's way higher than you would think. It's just kind of the guys he was throwing to and drops and things like that. So now that concern is gone, yeah, Drake Maye looks really, really good. I think if he was in last year's draft class with your Bryce Youngs, your CJ Stroud, your Anthony Richardson, I think talent-wise alone, he'd be the quarterback 1 from that class. So that's kind of how highly I'm rating Drake Maye here.
Yeah, I think he's phenomenal. I love your line, because I finished watching his film. I wrote up my first line in my rookie guide of his player profile. If you were building quarterbacks in a lab, it's hard to imagine they would look much different to Drake Maye. So yeah, I think we're pretty much aligned with that. Nice. On the completion percentage point, it's something I bang on about on Twitter. People throw out completion percentages without any sort of context to it. I think the key thing to remember, Caleb Williams so far this last year had a 68% completion rate, but his average depth of target was 9.2, whereas Drake Maye had a 63% completion percentage, but his average depth of target was 11. So he's almost 2 yards down the field more. He's pushing the ball down the field. You're not expecting someone to complete as many passes if they're taking that higher degree of difficulty, pushing the ball down the field more. And that's what Drake Maye does. I think if you're looking for, we had the conversation with Marvin Harrison, Caleb Williams, who's got the higher floor, who's the likely to bust. I struggled to see, now quarterbacks can always bust, but I think Drake Maye is a prototypical pocket passer. I think he is elite level processor. I think that he is the only quarterback in this class that I consistently see go from 1 to 2 to 3 quickly and make the right read. He throws with touch. He has got an electric arm. I'm really excited for fantasy. He's got some potential rushing upside. Yes, he's not going to be Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray tier, but he could be in that kind of Aaron Rodgers, type where, he's going to be all right around the goal line, maybe get you 200, 300, 400 rushing yards a year to give you a bit, but I don't think he's going to be adding that. And that's what I think caps his ceiling for fantasy. And that's where I love him. He's my QB1 at the moment, but there is definitely a cap on his ceiling where Caleb Williams' ceiling is number 1 overall player in fantasy.
Yeah. Absolutely spot on.
It feels like there's a big tier after those top 3. We move to number 4, and I had to go with Jayden Daniels. I think we talk about range of outcomes. Jayden Daniels is absolutely electric. This is a guy that I hadn't watched the last 2 years at LSU. I don't tend to watch much college football. I tend to watch guys as prospects. I watched quite a bit of Jayden Daniels early in his college career because I had him on a couple of Devy rosters when he was at Arizona State, and I was excited for what he could be. But what he has done over the last 2 years is absolutely phenomenal. We talked about Drake May and Caleb Williams and their average depth of target versus completion percentage. Jayden Daniels was over a 71% completion percentage this year and had an average depth of target at 10.5. And that's before I mentioned that he is an electric athlete in the open field. He is, to me, I hate doing comps, but he's basically Justin Fields. I've got some questions about him in the pocket. I've got some questions about him processing and versus pressure. But him in the open field as a runner and his arm talent is phenomenal. And he's got a really high bust percentage. But again, he's another player whose range of outcomes is overall number 1 player in fantasy.
Yeah. This is, even though they're completely different statures, this is this year's like Anthony Richardson, right? Where people are just not really sure what to do with him, right? Because if you remember last year, people were like, Anthony Richardson, not touching him. He's got holes here, here, and here. But he is an awesome athlete who, when he gets going with his legs, can destroy a team, right? Jayden Daniels is kind of like that, only he's even better passing the ball than Anthony Richardson ever shown in college. He had a couple of games, I think, Rich, where he went over 600 scrimmage yards, which is just absolutely absurd. He had one game, I think he threw for 400 and rushed for over 200. This is the kind of weapons that Jayden Daniels can bring to you. And hopefully he gets a good landing spot in the draft somewhere that, isn't kind of going to force him to be this pocket passer. I think you need to unleash him. You need to let him go. Kind of like what Chicago allowed Justin Fields eventually to do. That's what I think Jayden Daniels needs to be allowed to do right away. But you're right. This could just be lighting a pick on fire. Like, this guy could completely bust. It just might not work with the kind of athletes that he's going up against in the NFL. But at 104, I think this is worth the risk.
Yeah, if you're shooting for upside, this is absolutely the pick. I mean, it's always a little bit nervous when a guy's had to play 5 years in college before he's declared. But, we can let him off. There was COVID years in there. But you look at some of the numbers from this last year, 12% touchdown rate. He had a 8.4% big time throw rate, which is absolutely out of this world. And then his turnover every play percentage was 1.6. Like, those numbers are absolutely wild. Oh, and he had 1,250 rushing yards in 12 games. I struggle to express how bonkers he could be in the NFL. But there is absolutely the world, as you said, the bust percentage is very, very high. We're coming back to you for the 105. What you got here?
Let's just pick his teammate, why don't we? Right? I mean, a guy that was a huge help to Jayden Daniels last year, especially with his passing stats, Malik Nabers, who, for me, Rich, quite comfortably the wide receiver too. I think Marvin Harrison, he's on a tier in his own. And then I've actually got another kind of tier on its own for Malik Nabers in at the number 2 spot. I mean, I think we've mentioned the word electric quite a lot, but I can't help it, Rich. This guy is completely electric, like lightning in a bottle. Love whenever he gets the ball in his hands. And he's kind of like, he's not a similar build to Deebo Samuel, but if you know that Deebo Samuel, when he gets the ball in his hands, he looks like a running back. I kind of feel that with Malik Nabers. When he gets the ball in his hand, it's almost like a running back running with it. He's so good in space. He's so good at making people miss. And he just has that kind of speed. I'm wondering if that speed will translate to the combine, or if he's one of those guys who's just super, super football fast as well. It'd be interesting to see what kind of 40 time he gets. But to be honest, I'm not going to knock him down, even if he runs a slower 40 time than people think. I've seen what I've seen. I know he's super, super quick and electric with the ball. So I'm super happy. Malik Nabers at 1.5. This is looking like a really, really strong class here, Rich, because usually Malik Nabers or a guy like that, you're looking at, well, at least one spot up, right?
Yeah, I think whenever you get quarterbacks, that creates depth in the class. And I think that we've talked about over the last few years about good classes, bad classes. I think there's always going to be 2 or 3 good wide receivers. Normally there's a running back, maybe not this year. But as soon as you add in multiple early round quarterbacks, it suddenly creates this depth where you're getting the wide receiver 2, a potential elite prospect at the 105. And I love everything you've said about Malik Nabers. I think that he's a phenomenal route runner. He is so smooth.
Yeah.
I love him with the ball in his hands. I think he is that physical runner. I don't think he's going to test particularly well in terms of the 40 time. I think he lacks top end speed. If you see him run kind of straight 9 routes and things like that, he struggles to get on top of corners. And I think that he's quicker than fast. And I think that he's not a long strider, which is the kind of player that normally tests well in the 40. So I think that he'll do well at like the 3 cone and the short shuttle and stuff like that. But he is not going to be a 4.3 40 runner, if that makes sense. I may be proved very wrong in 2 months' time, but I'm expecting probably 4.5 would be about where I'd probably put him, I reckon.
Those 3 cones are things I actually look at more. I mean, you'll probably know more about this than me, Rich, but I believe there was, I can't remember exactly who it was, like decided to try and find, is there any correlation between your 40 time and how well you perform in the NFL? There's actually a negative correlation. Like the guys that run faster actually have been drafted higher and performed worse. So I don't know how much stock I take into a 40 time, really.
Yeah, I mean, I put it out on Twitter every year. There's no correlation between any single combine metric and fantasy production. Yeah. There's zero correlation across anything. So we can look at it as much as you like. I do think athletic performance in the combine leads to improved draft stock, but I don't think it is everything. I think my concern with him is that I think he's fantastic with the ball in his hands. I think he's a really smooth operator. I'm a little bit concerned at how easily he gets manhandled by corners. Now, we can talk about the SEC being the closest thing to the NFL and stuff. They're not massive corners. I do wonder if you stick Sauce Gardner on him or something like that. I think he could get manhandled and struggle to separate. But I mean, you can say that about any corner receiver. He can be schemed open. He can be schemed into spaces. But I'm really excited to see him. He's a player that has grown on me over the last few weeks of watching his game tape. At the 106, though, to me, this is where the tier ends. I think the top 6 I really like. I'm a little bit less excited about after that. I don't like taking a tight end this early, but look, I've got to go with the Georgia Bulldog, haven't I? So Brock Bowers, I think he is maybe one of the best receiving tight ends we've seen since probably Cole Pitts, maybe beyond Cole Pitts. I think he is a matchup weapon. I think he is a superstar. I have serious questions about his size. I think he is going to come in probably about 235, 240, which is light. I think he's going to struggle to be an inline tight end. I think we've seen it this last year with the Bills where they drafted Kincaid and they thought that they could run 12 personnel and it would get teams in heavier personnel so they could throw the ball. And teams basically just went, we're just going to stay in nickel because Dalton Kincaid's a wide receiver. I think the Brock Bowers is, to hit his ceiling, is going to have to be a better blocker. He's going to have to put some bulk on so that he can help in the run game and make teams treat him like a tight end and not just a big slot receiver. But are you a believer in Brock Bowers? Would you be taking him this early?
Yes, I think this is about right for Bowers, just because we've seen a few trends at tight end. One thing we've seen is if you've got a difference maker at tight end, that really is a huge help for your rosters. I mean, I would hazard to guess most championship winning rosters this year had one of those kind of different making tight ends playing and not one of the ones that you kind of just stream at tight end. So I'm willing to take a risk with Brock Bowers here. And a nice trend recently, we've seen some of these rookie tight ends come in the last few years and do, quite well to to Sam Laporta as in as well as you possibly can do. So pretty encouraging to see these guys are coming in. They're coming in what appears to be more polished coming out of college and more adept at, running different routes and different blocking schemes. That's really promising for me. Georgia, I can only assume, will produce incredibly polished tight ends, incredibly polished players all over. So yeah, I'm excited for Brock Bowers. I am, we've seen with Kyle Pitts, landing spot with tight ends probably matters a little bit more than some of the other positions. So I am maybe hesitant to see who drafts him. I mean, if he goes to somewhere like the LA Chargers, that's exciting for me. But yeah, I maybe pump the brakes a little bit to see where he ends up. But I'm excited about Brock Bowers. I think he can be a difference maker at tight end for sure.
Yeah, I think landing spot for tight end is critical. I think that as a community, we are awful at understanding what is a good or bad landing spot. I think that people look at a depth chart and say, oh, he's not got a tight end ahead of him, that's a good landing spot. But I think that actually it's the reason I hate tight ends that move in free agency. How a team uses a player at tight end position is so important. And we have no idea how teams are going to use it. People looked at Michael Mayer going to the Raiders and were like, well, Darren Waller's gone. That's a great landing spot. They didn't use him correctly. So it's a bad landing spot. Sam Laporta, nobody was particularly screaming about how good a landing spot that was. They used him correctly and it's phenomenal. And I think it's it's really important, but we need to understand why it's a good landing spot. Where are you going here at 107?
Yeah, I think here at 107, Richard, we're going to go back to the wide receiver. Well, we're going to go to Rome Odunze out of Washington, who obviously just had an absolutely fantastic season over there, pairing up with Michael Penix Jr. I mean, Odunze, he's got a couple of red flags, right? We got to get those out of the way to start with. The first one is, we spoke about, we don't really like late declares. This guy's a late declare. I think he's played 5 years in college, I believe. What I do like about Odunze is, though, over the last offseason and the last two offseasons, he sort of transformed his body. He used to be this kind of lanky, skinny kind of guy. He's put on about 15 pounds of muscle, and he's kind of changed the way that he plays. So I do like that he's seen a massive glaring hole in his game, and he's gone in, he's put the hard work in, and he's adjusted. And he's just dominated people. Like, he has just looked so good. The issue is, we mentioned earlier, playing against these college guys, is that domination going to translate in the NFL? Is that my ball kind of attitude going to work against, you said it, like your Sauce Gardners of the world? It's going to be a hell of a lot trickier, but I can't knock the guy. He's done kind of everything that people wanted him to do, and he's done really well with it as well. So he's big, he's strong, doesn't separate in space as much as I want. Very good red zone threat, though. So he's not the finished article, he's not the finished product, but I like what I'm seeing from Odunze. I think he's got a lot of potential at 107.
Yeah, I'll be honest, he's a player that I'm really struggling with right now.
Yeah.
I don't traditionally like big-bodied, fast guys that get overdrafted in rookie draft and overhyped, because I've said it a million times, my Calvin Johnson theory, where people are chasing that big X outside receiver for fantasy and it gets overhyped. There's a whole list of people that have, fallen and busted over the past few years because people are chasing that.
Quentin Johnson.
That being said, exactly. The lack of production year 1 and 2 is a real concern for me. I don't mind late declares at the wide receiver position. I know some people think that's a death knell for people. I don't mind it, but I don't mind it as long as there's early production. If a guy's not produced early in his career and only produced when he's older, I'm nervous. As I said, I think there's serious concerns, but he's a really good route runner for his size. Yeah. You mentioned the kind of contested catch high point specialist. I think he's fantastic in and around that, the red zone, those contested catches. He is great. I think where we've seen the difference from someone like an N'Keal Harry to a Jamar Chase, who are both contested catch beasts in college, was that Jamar Chase was a much better nuanced route runner. Yeah. Odunze is that. So there's some hope there. But that's where I'm struggling. I can't fall in love with him. I can't hate him. And I think that basically I'm probably going to end up having very few shares because I think there are some people that are going to love him, and we're going to have the Treylon Burks effect, the Quentin Johnson effect, where he gets overdrafted because of his size, and he's probably going to go 105, 106, and I'm probably not taking him till that late first round.
I think there's enough red flags there for sure.
Absolutely. One guy that I absolutely love, Xavier Worthy.
I knew you would love this guy, Rich.
You know me, you know my type. I like small-bodied, underappreciated, undersized guys that have just produced and are elite smooth operators, and he is one of the smoothest route runners you will find in this league, in this class. He is so fast, man. I was looking it up. Yeah. He ran a 10.5 100 meters at 17 years of age.
No way.
That is absolutely bonkers. Okay? Yeah. He's not just college fast. He is NFL fast. He is a phenomenal athlete. And, to go with it, he's a really impressive route runner. He is produced consistently. This is a guy that had a 1,000-yard season as an 18-year-old true freshman with a big program in Texas. He can play inside and outside. Everybody will say, oh, he's only a slot receiver because he's small. Those people don't watch, the likes of Deontay Johnson, Tank Dell, who are lining up outside. This is the modern NFL. You don't just have to be 6'2" plus to play outside anymore. You can use, reduce splits. You can use motion. You can get guys off the line of scrimmage so that they get free releases. I think Xavier Worthy is primed to be the person that is undervalued in rookie drafts, and come, September, October next year, people are going to be sitting there going, oh, the team that won the league, they got Xavier Worthy with the 112. That's just unfair. Yeah. And he's primed for that. But look, I'm a Worthy believer. Are you a fan, or do I need to call the Jets a bit?
No, I really like Xavier Worthy. You mentioned he's definitely not just a slot guy. If anything, Texas lined him up on the outside quite a lot this year and actually put on those kind of go routes and let him just kind of use his speed. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more of him this year. I thought Texas just in general, underutilized some of their receiving weapons, apart from maybe outside of Sanders there at tight end. He was used quite a lot. But yeah, I wanted to see more of him from this year, because you're right. For someone who was so good as a freshman, was that his best? Is that his best season to date? Still his first year? I'm not 100% sure, Rich. I'm pretty sure. I
think he outproduced. It depends what stat you're looking at, but I think he potentially outproduced some this last year. But yeah, I mean, in terms of overall team production, his freshman year was better than this last year, because there wasn't many people that were producing for Texas in that freshman year, quite frankly. They
had injury worries at quarterback this year as well, which may have bumped some things down. But yeah, Worthy, you're right. Smooth operator. That is exactly the terms I would use for him as well. And again, you just gotta hope wherever he ends up, they're not just gonna give him I can't even remember the guy's name. This is how much I'm upset. The guy who won the Blindikov last year, small guy, right? Speedster.
Jordan Addison.
No, Jalen Hyatt.
Oh, okay.
I'm hoping he's not going to get the Jalen Hyatt treatment where people just go, that's a fast guy, we'll just run him up and down the field. I think he's too good for that, though.
Oh, yeah. And Jalen Hyatt was a one-trick pony in college. He ran out the slot, he ran deep, and that was it. He was elite at tracking the ball. I think Xavier Worthy has got so much more to his game than that right now. Who are you going with the 109 here then, Max?
I think you might like this guy too, because I would also call this guy a bit of a smooth operator, right? I'm going 109. I'm going Troy Franklin, who many people saying the greatest wide receiver in the history of Oregon University for the Oregon Ducks. I mean, that's big praise. Yeah, I mean, that's praise enough. I think I'll take greatest ever at any kind of university. Troy Franklin, just love the way that he runs routes, just really silky smooth. You don't really know what direction he's going to go until he's already gone. Really, really nice hands. Has been quite good in the end zone as well. Had a really good relationship, obviously, with Bo Nix this year, who also played, really, really well. That is because he is, 45 years old. So Troy Franklin linked up with him really nicely. He just is kind of a bit of the epitome of this new kind of age of wide receiver that's coming in. You're not really worried about how physically strong they are. He's a bit of a lankier kind of guy, but He's got really good hands. He runs really good routes. He's got nice speed, and he gets open. So he ticks a lot of boxes.
Yeah, I'm one game into his tape. He's the guy I'm literally watching this week at the moment. Don't love what I see, if I'm being honest. I think it might just be the game I've watched, but I think elite deep threat, really fast. I think he shows phenomenal ability to track the ball.
Yeah.
I didn't see much else. I worry that he hasn't run a full route tree. I'm intrigued to see, as I watch more of his games, whether I see more variety in his routes. You talked about Jalen Hyatt with Xavier Worthy. That's kind of my concern with Troy Franklin. I worry that he's a tall Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah.
I'm open to be proved wrong. As I said, I'm very early in the process with him. But yeah, I'm not blown away. I worry that he can't fight through contact. He's doesn't run a full route tree. So yeah, jury's out, should we say.
Yeah, I think if you're one game in, I would suspect you'll see a more rounded route tree with him. That's certainly something I managed to see watching him this year. So I think you've got more to come with him. But that fighting through contact, that's definitely a worry of mine for him.
Yeah. So at the 110, I go Keon Coleman. I think he's a big-bodied elite athlete, great at the catch point. He's a long strider, so I think he's going to test well. I worry about the route running ability. I don't think he's a great separator, and I think that he's going to struggle at the next level, quite frankly. I mean, what do you think?
I don't like him. Like him.
Perfect.
I think he got a lot of hype. If you remember, week 2, week 3, he made one of the best catches you're literally ever going to see. All right, I got to give him credit for that. But he kind of disappeared back half of the season. And this wasn't just after Jordan Travis went down. It was a few games before that. Yeah, right. He doesn't separate that well. I think once teams kind of figured out, Keon Coleman's the guy that they're looking for, and they stopped, trying to double team up on Johnny Wilson, because you'd think you'd be throwing it long to the 6'7" guy, but turns out they didn't. So Keon Coleman was the guy that they really focused in on to put their best corner on him, and he got shut down the second half of the season. So I'm a little bit worried if that can happen to him in college, what's going to happen to him at the next level. And unless the Chiefs draft him, then I'm all in.
I think, look, I agree with you. I've got real concerns. There is absolutely talent here. There's a reason why we're still taking him in the top 10 picks of this draft. Yeah. But there are questions, and I think that he's one that I want to see run at the combine, not just at 40, but I want to see how he does in the agility drills, how he does running routes, because I don't think I saw enough of a complex route tree for him to get separation at the next level, quite frankly.
I think he's going to be the biggest faller. If you remember, this time last year, we had people like Keyshawn Butte and people like that who people would still take around the back end of the first round, who we seen just fall. I would say maybe not as drastic as Butte, but I think Coleman might be your biggest faller by the time all things are said and done.
Yeah, absolutely. Who are we going with the 111 here, Max?
Yeah, at 111, I thought we kind of waited long enough. Like you said, quarterbacks kind of push the talent out. I mentioned him earlier, granddad himself, Michael Penix Jr. I mean, Bo Nix's granddad, Michael Penix Jr. That's his older brother, right? So Michael Penix Jr., much older prospect. I say that he can't be any older than 24. Who am I talking about? What old is? But he absolutely balled out this year, Michael Penix. And the issue with him is he never had a healthy season before until the last 2 years. And when he's actually been fully healthy, he's a great. I mean, the arm talent, really, really good, especially on those deep balls. It does help that at Washington this year, he had 3, real strong wide receivers to help him out there. So I just like the arm talent. He's a left-handed player. I don't know why. Something like that always helps. I can't help it, Rich. It just looks nice. It looks a bit different. So Penix for me, I think at 111, a team is going to take him. He's going to be at best, I think, unless he gets a bit lucky or there's some injuries. He's going to be your quarterback 3 on your rosters most of the time. But he's someone who hopefully you won't mind filling in on a bye week. He's not going to be a guy that's going to go forward and take the NFL by storm, I would assume, but he's going to be a nice sort of piece for your team.
Yeah, I think he's got elite accuracy. I think he's probably got the best processing ability, both pre-snap and post-snap, of anyone in this class. He is that kind of ideal prototypical pocket passer that we saw in the kind of late 90s.
Yep.
The 4 season-ending injuries concern me. I think his throwing motion is too slow. I think if he's gonna, be an elite, accurate pocket passer, he needs to quicken up that motion at the next level, because I think there's college accuracy and there's NFL accuracy, and I think if he's not getting the ball out quick enough, he's almost telegraphing to defenders. It doesn't matter how accurate you are; those windows are very small, and I think he needs to tighten that up. I also have a real issue with him under pressure. I think he looks great when the pocket's made for him. Under pressure, he kind of crumbles. I don't think he can create out structure. I don't think he's got an answer. And I just don't see a world where he has that kind of one superstar ability that you can hang your hat on. Like Joe Burrow, he has some faults. He doesn't create particularly well out structure. He doesn't have that elite arm talent, but he is so hyper accurate and so anticipatory in his throwing that he doesn't need that other stuff. I don't see it with Michael Penix, and it's almost like if he was better against pressure, then the accuracy and stuff would work. If he had a quicker throwing motion, that would all work. You throw in the fact that he's left-handed, I just don't love it. I think, I get, it's cool to look different. And Michael Vick is like, my dream of a quarterback and stuff like that. It sounds stupid, but the ball spins differently from a left-handed quarterback. Yeah. And when you get to stuff like the combine, those receivers, a lot of those receivers have probably never caught a ball from a left-handed quarterback. And it's so stupid, but as someone that played with a left-handed quarterback, the ball spins the other way and you see the ball coming in and it takes you by surprise and it doesn't feel right. So I wouldn't be shocked if he suddenly looks inaccurate and there's more drop passes and things at the combine if he decides to throw. And I know that stuff shouldn't matter, but it does in NFL evaluators' minds. And I wonder if that's the kind of thing that could potentially knock him when we get to NFL draft time. And if he's a first round pick in the NFL draft, then 111 is an absolute screaming value. Yeah. If he falls into day 2, I'm not touching him in the first probably 20 picks in a fantasy draft, just because I don't think that ceiling is there to be anything more than a QB3. And at that point in the draft, I'm looking for upside.
Yeah, his best thing going for him is there are so many teams in dire need of quarterbacks right now that might push him up, and he might go round 1.
Yeah, absolutely. To round out the first rounds, I went Braelon Allen. Look, I said about sweet swinging for upside. I think if we were drafting 15 years ago, Braelon Allen probably would have been a top 5 pick in this draft in terms of fantasy. I think he would have potentially been a first round pick in the NFL draft. As a 2-down back, he is phenomenal. I think he is a big-bodied bruiser. I think he's got phenomenal contact balance. I think he is fantastic in that kind of power gap scheme. I don't know if he's so good in sort of a one-cut zone scheme. The big concern is that he can't pass protect and he can't really catch. But we've seen other backs come out of Wisconsin. Jonathan Taylor wasn't really considered much of a receiving back when he came out of Wisconsin. That was the big knock on him. And he's not, set any records in the NFL, but he's looked competent. And, you can never compare anyone to Derrick Henry, but Derrick Henry has got stones for hands.
Yeah.
Can't run a route. He basically just goes and stands in space and they sort of underarm him the ball. And he gets 20, 30 catches a year. Braelon could potentially do that. I think that he's a good enough running back. If you're swinging for upside, that's where I'm punting. This is a bad running back class. I don't like any of the backs particularly. I think they've all got a big flaw. Yeah. But if you were to tell me in 2 years' time that Braelon Allen was, a really competent fantasy back, he's kind of Gus Edwards with a bit more of a ceiling. And Gus Edwards is usable fantasy. So,
Yeah.
why not swing for the fences and hope that he can round out that game?
Yeah, he's the most upside at running back, especially because he's 19, right? He's only going to be 20 whenever he gets into the league. So he is super young, doesn't have much tread on the tires, still young enough. I mean, a lot of these guys are young enough that you can still mold and shape them. But Braelon Allen in particular, young enough where you can mold him, you can shape him. Hey, guess what? People can learn how to catch the ball. Like, it's not like he can't catch now. He's never going to be able to do it. This is like athlete. He's about to be a professional athlete. I'm sure he can learn to catch a ball. I mean, we've all learned like how to swim, and I'm sure that's harder than catching a ball. He'll be just fine at the NFL if that's what a team really wants him to do. And we've seen time and time again, the best pass catchers coming out. Doesn't matter if that's not what the team actually uses them for. We had people screaming at the Raiders for years to throw Josh Jacobs the ball. It took him forever when they finally did. He was running back 1 overall. But they didn't do it. And there's the opposite, like you talked about Jonathan Taylor, and you go, oh, hold on, this guy can catch the ball because they probably, helped him learn. Like, these coaches know what they're doing. So for me, pass catching is almost like a can do, or absolutely cannot do. And he's maybe just on the edge of a can do. So I wouldn't write him off as I absolutely cannot do. The guy's a cannonball. Like, he's built like one. When he gets up to speed, it's great. He's a bit rumbly, I think, going in, but I think he's, got the highest upside. Don't love the running back class, though, like you said.
Yeah. And that concludes it. That's our first rounds. Those are the guys you need to be keeping an eye out as we go through these next few months. Let us know in the comments below. Is there a pick that you loved? Is there a pick that you hate? I always want to hear the hate. Yeah. I love hearing people tell me who I got wrong. Let me know in the comments below. Mags, thank you ever so much for joining us. We are huge fans of the hot seat. I'm looking forward to diving into your latest series about taking over the worst orphan team you have ever seen.
Oh, man, it's so bad.
Let's remind the listeners, where can they find you? Where can they find your work?
Yes, thanks very much again, Rich. Congrats to you and Tom, by the way, being 1 year in. You guys have absolutely smashed it. Like, 1 full year, you've achieved so much. It's an absolutely brilliant show. Love listening to you guys. So big congrats to you guys. If you want to hear more from me, you can catch me over on X at Hot Seat Mags, or I run a podcast called the Dynasty Hot Seat. You can check that out as well over on YouTube. Like Rich said, currently trying to rebuild the worst Dynasty team you've ever seen. You've probably heard Rich and Tom on this same very show say, probably shouldn't take you more than a year to rebuild a team. Not this one. No, this one. This is bad. This is a team with no assets, players or picks somehow. I haven't quite figured out how it happened. So I picked this orphan team up. So we're going to fix it. If you're interested, come over, have a check out of it. Leave some comments saying what you think I should do. And then, of course, loads of 2024 rookie stuff coming at you. Also, a co-host over at the Fantasy Wildcard over on the Dynasty Show. Make sure you're checking out the Fantasy Wildcard team as well. All the lads are top notch.
Beautiful. I very much look forward to hearing your work and let's see what you can do with that team, because it is a horror. If you are still here 45 minutes into the show, make sure you're hitting that like and that subscribe button, and we'll be back very soon with more mock drafts.